Good morning at Laura Road. My name is Jessica. Welcome to ERCF Online Services. I am so happy that you decided to join us. If you are unsure of the cool things that are happening, please sign up for our weekly Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, you will get an email with all kinds of amazing things, all packed into one little spot. You can't miss any of the good stuff happening if you get that email. You may message me, Jessica S at ercf.ca, to get added to that. Pastor Jim is going to be speaking today, New Normal versus Radical Shift. It's going to be a great discussion. Stay tuned afterwards on our Facebook Live. You can chit chat with one of our pastors. They will be there to hang out and have a conversation with you. Don't miss it. Our worship team's coming up next. We'll talk to you later.
Oh, how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you graced the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise, against the rush of grace descending, against the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. I will search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are, so I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Oh, how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend the path, from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinner's past. And oh, how fast will you come running, if just a shadow me through the night. Trace my steps through all my failures and come out the other side. For who could dare ascend that mountain, that valley hill called Calvary, but for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are, so I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadow, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Wherever I walk through, wherever I just we call grace. A mighty river flowing upward from a deep but empty grave. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the sun when my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands, in the heartache, all the same. Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. Amen. Amen.
His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations. children and their children and their children. May His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you. 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 He is for you.
Hi everybody, here we are, third installment of our series, New Normal or Radical Shift. Well, this third installment is called Lead Your Screens, Lead Your Life. Before we talk about screens though, I want to talk about food because food and screens are very similar. Well, first thing about this demonstration about food is we're going to be focusing completely on fruits and vegetables, and you're going to know all kinds of apples and oranges and bananas, and we've got just different kinds of fruit here. And in terms of vegetables, we've got corn chips, and in terms of other kinds of fruit, we've got fruit strips, and we've got cranberry and almond fruit strips, and we have got fruit slices, and it says real fruit slices, and can't forget what's in the bottom of the bag, and that is we've got sun-ripe, gluten-free, nut-free, vegan, strawberry banana strips, and here's one that's actually raspberry. And what I found really interesting about this is that they're 14 grams in weight, and 11 of those grams are sugar. So obviously I'm being facetious, I'm being silly, but you know what happens? What happens is the things that people tell me aren't necessarily the things that are true. Corn twists may not even have any corn, and real juice fruit slices may have very little fruit and tons of sugar. And when you look at the labels and you find out what's inside of here, my goodness, can anything be wrong with high fructose corn syrup? Like really? It sounds healthy. It's got corn in it, and corn is a vegetable, isn't it? What I'm trying to say is that what we take in terms of what we eat is going to impact our lives, and we are fooling ourselves if we think we can eat all kinds of things anytime we want, all that we want, regardless of the content, the nutrition or lack of nutrition, and think that it's not going to severely impact our lives. So tell you what, last couple of years I've had quite a change in my diet and the way I look at things, and I'm a guy who looks at labels now. And for me, I went through 3 phases. The first phase is I had to learn things I didn't know before. The second thing was I had to unlearn things that I thought were true but were really myths. And the third thing, which is maybe the most important one, I had to apply practically to my life and to my lifestyle what I knew to be true. And so what applies to food applies to screens as well. Now, I know some of you are getting fidgety and you're thinking I'm telling you don't look at your screens. I'm not saying that at all. For me, screens are like food. Am I saying you shouldn't eat food? No, I'm not saying that at all. Food is great. I love food. I enjoy food. Maybe too much. The point is, we have to look at three things when we think about food and when we think about screens. We have to think about content. Because it feels good, doesn't mean it is good. You know what? There are a lot of people that think that sugar, especially things like high fructose corn syrup, kinds of sugar, is poison. I don't go that far, but I'll tell you what, just because it feels good and tastes good doesn't mean it is good. Same with our screens. So content is just vital. What's the nutritional value? What is in it? Is it good or is it bad or is it neutral? And the other thing is not just what is in it, but how much am I consuming? So it's the content, but then it's the quantity. If the average recommended caloric intake for a man in North America is like between 2,000 and 3,000 calories, I can eat good food, but if I'm eating 6,000 calories a day, even if the content is pretty good, I am way over the regular dose and it's going to be bad for my body and bad things are going to happen and it's a health issue and I'm not going to be healthy. So we're talking about content, the nutrition, what's in it. The second thing is what quantity am I taking in? And the third thing is the frequency. The way my body is designed in terms of food, if I'm eating all day long, I'm not giving my body a time to rest and to process the way it was designed to process, and I'm not going to be healthy. So eating all of the time, watching screens all of the, it's just not healthy. But please understand, I'm not against screens and I'm not against food. What I want to be really careful for my life, for my children's life, for my grandchildren's life, is to understand that the content of what we're consuming, whether it's food or whether it's a screen I'm looking at, is critical. The quantity of what I'm consuming, whether it's food or whether it's a screen, is critical. And the frequency, when I'm doing it and how long I'm doing it, it's also critical, whether we're talking about food or whether we're talking about screens. As I said, I'm not against screens. I love for you to look at this picture of probably the favorite person in my entire life. And I went up behind them and they weren't looking, and I took a picture of their workspace. So look at this. So my wife Carrie has got all these screens that she works with. Like, I'm not against screens. It's not about the screens. You know what it's about? It's about content, it's about quantity, and it's about frequency. Now, for me and my, let's call it a battle with food over the years, and I haven't won the battle, it's just part of the process. The issue for me, again, as I mentioned before, was I had to learn things I didn't know. I had to unlearn things I thought that I knew. And the third one, which I think is most important, I had to apply to my life through lifestyle choices and changes, the things that I knew to be true. All right, listen to this promise of Jesus when he talks about the life that he's has available for us. Jesus said, Matthew 11:28, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Take my yoke on you." Now, that's an expression from Jesus' time, and it was an agrarian society and animals working and plowing fields and all kinds of things like that. So a yoke then would be like a harness, a piece of wood with leather straps on it that would go across the shoulders of a couple of animals, usually oxen, for example. And so this yoke would settle over the shoulders of two oxen, and then they would then work together. Now, if one animal could pull X amount of pounds, you'd think two animals could pull 2X amount of pounds. But actually, the way it works is that a yoke multiplies the efforts and reduces the weight of per animal. Okay, so Jesus is using that phraseology for us. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, Jesus said. I am meek and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Another side note here. This is the only place in the scripture where Jesus ever describes his own character. This is the only place in the Bible where Jesus describes his own character. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. I, Jesus said, am meek and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I've said it before, I'll have to say it again. I have read this verse literally dozens, maybe hundreds of times. And as I read this verse, I thought to myself, I am not experiencing what an easy yoke is all about. My life, maybe yours too. My life is so often characterized by struggle and hardship and difficulty and things weighing me down, and things are troubling me, and I get worried about different things. So easy to slip into that. Jesus said to take his yoke upon me. That's going to be a different experience. I love how it's rendered in the Passion Translation. So listen to this. Let me read it for you. Are you weary carrying a heavy burden? Then come to me. I will refresh your life, for I am your oasis. Think about what an oasis is. I've never actually been in a physical oasis, but I certainly know what it means. Jesus said, I am your oasis. Simply join your life with mine. Learn my ways, he said, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble, easy to please. Learn my ways, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble, easy to please. You will find refreshment and rest in me, Jesus said. When Jesus talks about learn of my ways, in the other translation, learn of me. Do you remember in John 14, verse 6, Jesus said this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. When we think about that, we know that we spend a lot of time as Christians, and certainly in our church, talking about Jesus being our life. And by that we mean he's the source of everything that we need, and he gives us strength, and he's like the foundation we build on. It's like he's the center, he's the fulcrum, and Jesus is like, if our life is a wheel, he's the center, he's the hub, and everything radiates from him. He's our life. We talk about Jesus being the truth. Well, oh man, there's so many things we could say about truth and learning things about Jesus and growing in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus. We learn things about him with things that are true. But we don't often talk about Jesus being the way and what that means. Could it actually be that Jesus is referring to not only the life of Jesus, what he imparts to us, not only the truth of Jesus, who he is and what that means, but maybe the way of Jesus is a lifestyle of Jesus. Take my yoke on you and learn of me, Jesus said. Perhaps that refers to the application of all the things that Jesus has said to us and applying it into lifestyle choices. So perhaps being a follower of Jesus is not just following what he teaches, but following the kind of lifestyle that he lives and what he said to us. For example, the promises we read in Matthew 11:28 talk about a life that's unburdened, talks about a life that is peaceful. And as I mentioned, I'll be the first one to volunteer and say, I'm on a journey. I am not there yet. That's what I'm aspiring to. But I've got to apply the life of Jesus in a better, more effective way to get where Jesus is talking. But when he talks about peace and he talks about fulfillment and satisfaction and him being an oasis from a troubled kind of a life, wow, we all want that. That's the promise of the life of Jesus. And yet, what do we see around us? We see a culture that is going at a faster tempo than it's ever been before. A culture that's filled with apprehension and fear and conflict and individualism causing fights between people and people being enraged because of differing opinions and people not learning how to love one another and live together. We see all of this upset, and yet Jesus promised us an oasis. So how do we enter into this kind of a life? And that's what the teaching of the New Covenant really is about. The Apostle Paul in Philippians chapter 4, though, gives us a window into that kind of a peace. Our small group has been studying the book of Philippians, and last night, as a matter of fact, we looked at chapter 4, and a verse was there that I thought was so powerful. And let me read it to you. And again, I'm reading it from the Message translation this time. Listen to this as it applies to having our minds and our hearts at peace, pushing aside and having all of the turmoil and the worries at bay, pushing them away. And think about the context of that, what the promise of Matthew 11:28 was. And now here's the Apostle Paul. And remember, the Apostle Paul, as he is writing this from a Roman prison. Okay, so he's not writing it from a hotel room. So he's writing this from a prison. And this is what he says. Summing it all up, friends, I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true. Now, stop right there. What are we talking about? Filling your minds and meditating. Okay, I'm thinking of 1970s meditation. Is that what we're talking about? No. Meditation is thinking long and deeply about something. Thinking about something deeply for an extended period of time. That's really all that meditation is. David writes, "My meditation, Lord, of you will be sweet." Thinking for an extended period of time. So he says, fill your minds and meditate on things that are true. And then he goes on, which we will go on in just a moment. I want to come back again and stay on this for a moment. I want to meditate on this for a little while. We don't even do that in our frenetic, busy kind of a culture. We just don't do that. So maybe it's time for a lifestyle change. When we talk about what we normally used to do, normal is the things that we find comfort in. Normal are the routines and habits and rhythms that we would practice that bring us comfort and security and safety. To have a radical shift is to shift towards the other end of normal. What's the other end of normal? Normal is what I always do. The other end of normal, that's what I never do. Well, a radical shift is moving away from the things that I always do and now starting to think in ways I wouldn't normally think. And so that would cause me to do things I wouldn't normally do. And so I will therefore experience things I wouldn't normally experience. Radical shift doesn't mean I'm selling everything that I own and moving to Tibet or something. Radical shift means I'm moving away from what I have always done because Jesus has a bigger plan for my life. And it's causing me to think in ways I haven't thought before, to do things I wouldn't have done before so that I could experience things I haven't experienced before. Coming down to this, maybe one of the reasons why we're just so bombarded with with things that weigh us down and cause us to be in turmoil and not at peace and worried, maybe it's because we have forgotten what's going on. I talked about this bag of candy and how I can't consume this without it impacting my body. Well, we know that on average, North American people have 5,000 digital messages coming into their brain every single day. In fact, the researchers say it's between 4 and 10,000, so we're taking a conservative estimate. 5,000. My goodness, I was looking today, and there is a company. It's a Kickstarter company, and they have just come up with glasses called IRL glasses, in real life glasses, and they are made of, well, won't go into that, but basically they filter out, when you put on these glasses, they filter out screens. Now, it doesn't work for smartphones, but it works for computer screens and TV screens. You put on the glasses and you can't see the TV screens, or you can't see any computer screens. They're black. Okay, so, oh, that's amazing. Why are people doing that? Because people recognize it is affecting us, and we're kidding ourselves if we say that it isn't. Perhaps the answer for us to start to experience the things that Jesus promised is to start to change our lifestyle so we apply the things that Jesus said, and he said in his word. When the Apostle Paul says, fill your mind and meditate, how do we do that? Well, maybe it's this idea of guarding the content of what we consume, guarding the quantity of what we consume, and guarding the frequency of what we consume. Maybe we're talking about food, maybe we're talking about screens. But if the Apostle Paul says, fill your mind and meditate on good things, that's going to mean forget the news, forget all the social media platforms, forget all those things. And yes, let's start thinking about Jesus. Let's take time apart. He says, fill your minds and meditate on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious. Focus on the best, not the worst. Some of us have news coming to us all of the time. Hey, you know what? That's not the best. It's always the worst, because it's the worst that is compelling for us. The beautiful, not the ugly. Things to praise, not things to curse. We're so often taking in bad things and bad stories and terrible things. And you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't ever open ourselves up to those things. What I'm saying is a constant, steady diet of that. That means the nutrition value that's going in, the quality is very bad. The quant is just coming in, and there's no break, and we're going to get sick. And it's going to, whether it's physically with food or whether it's mentally and physically with screens, we have to guard those things. Put into practice what you have learned from me, what you heard and saw and realized. The Apostle Paul is saying to them, okay, I stayed with you in Philippi. He was there for months. The things that you saw me do, he's saying, the lifestyle that I lived, what I did, what you saw in me, what you heard from me, what you realized because of my message, put it into practice. And again, for radical lifestyle changes, for my journey and battle with food, it's not just what I know. It's not just learning things, and it's unlearning things, but more importantly, it's putting it into practice, and that's a lifestyle change. So what we are saying is we've got to apply things so it changes our lifestyle. Let me give you an example that you'll all be able to relate to, because we all relate to life. And let's face it, most of our marriages are like this at some point or another, for sure, absolutely. Well, let's say that I'm in a kind of a rocky time in my relationship with my wife, and I'll speak as a husband. So let's say that my wife comes to me and she says, Jim, I want to have a better marriage, and I know it's both ways. It's not just you, and we're struggling. And this is what I need from you, Jim. I need to have one night a week, like one date night where we can just be by ourselves, and we just to have fun and converse with one another, and without any distractions, and no one else is there, just you and I. And the idea is just to enjoy one another and have a good time. That's one thing I want. The other thing is, I hardly ever see you anymore. I need 30 minutes of conversation every day. Now that we don't have to be talking about deep, emotional things, or I just need the time with you, without other people there, no distractions, not watching anything, just you and I. Okay, so here are the things that I need. I need a one night a week that's a date night, and I need 30 minutes of conversation a day, just the two of us where we can talk. Now, if you were a marriage counselor and you know that my relationship with Carrie was kind of on the rocks and something needed to be done, and if you knew that Carrie came with that request to me, what would your advice be to me? What would your advice be? If I came back and said, well, do you know what? I am so sorry. I would love that kind of a marriage too. I definitely want our relationship to get better, but I just don't know if I have the time. I don't think I can do that. Now, mind you, I'm watching television 25 hours in a week, between television and the internet and Netflix and different show entertainment. It's 24 hours a week. Yeah, and you know what? I do have a hobby that I spend a fair amount of time on, and yeah, of course I'm committed to my fantasy football league, but of course I need to go out and have a drink with my friends once in a while because I'm interested in cultivating relationships with them, and my marriage story indicates that without a lifestyle change, I'm not going to be able to enjoy and experience the things that marriage was designed to provide. In the same way, we have to be ready for lifestyle changes to experience the things that Jesus provided for us and said was available for our enjoyment and for our life. Here's what I'd like you to do. Here's the challenge in applying God's word. Number one, I'd like to ask you to look up digitalsabbath.io, digitalsabbath.io, and I'd like you to consider taking a Sabbath from your screens once a week. And it is your life. You're the manager of your life. You will do what you want, but let me just say, it's going to be healthy for you. Second thing I'd like you to do is consider looking into this particular book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Good food for thought, and again, it will bless you. And the third thing that I'd like to encourage you to do is to take personal inventory. This is the hardest thing, but unless we're willing to lead ourselves, we're not going to be able to lead other people, whether it's our children or grandchildren or other people who we have influence in our life. To lead ourselves means we have to have an honest look inside. Are we healthy? Am I healthy physically? Am I healthy emotionally? Am I healthy mentally? And screens have so much to do with that. God bless you. Thank you.